Hi, I'm Dr. Dan Ratner. As part of our Mind-Body Connection series, we'll continue to look more deeply at the three columns and their corresponding action steps. Today, I delve into how we need to think about the placebo effect and its significance to science and logic. If you haven't already, click subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, hit like if you like what you're hearing, and put your comments below, and I'll get back to you personally. And finally, you can reserve your place in one of my seminars or get any of my PDFs at www.crushingdoubt.org. For years and years, clinical trials have attempted to prove that their test results showed more significant results than the placebo effect. What does this mean? What is the placebo effect? Well, here's what the placebo effect is. The placebo effect refers to things that occur that are caused by the strength of the belief system one has, even absent any actual change agent from the environment being present. So let me say that again so you make sure that you understand what that is. The placebo effect represents the things that can happen when we believe something very strongly, even when that thing is not true. Because it occurs when we believe something to be false, it tends to be regarded as an abnormality, a novelty act, nothing to be taken seriously. In a way, this makes sense because the results are based on faulty information, but one part is not based on faulty information. In fact, the very existence of the placebo effect is direct proof that the mind can change what occurs in the body in hundreds of thousands of different ways. The placebo effect is, in fact, the largest piece of evidence for mind-body experience we have ever had. Think about this. The placebo effect is present in nearly every clinical trial that has ever been done, and it is essentially never, ever not a factor in the results. How on earth is this extremely significant finding regarded as useless, other than just to compare to other things? That's how it's regarded. Just compare it to other things. The fact is, the existence of the placebo effect, this finding, is the most significant finding possibly in the history of science. It is the finding that shows that the mind-body experience is not only real, but it is the rule. It is not the exception. It is the thing that is usually happening. So what does it actually mean that the placebo effect happens so often in every population, in nearly every study? This is the thing I want you to think about because it doesn't get talked about. It gets dismissed. Instead, let's think about it. Let's ask the question and see what it means, logically speaking. What it means is that the mind, most certainly, does control physiology and the body without nearly any bounds whatsoever. Here's my question, my next question. How many times do we need to see it in action before we stop dismissing it? This is the thing I don't understand. Why is it that the placebo effect is lying right out there for us to see? It happens all the time, and it's regarded as the thing that happens when nothing happens in the other part of the study. It's the thing that's happening in the part of the study where the placebo effect takes effect. It is a real piece of data. Think about it this way. It may not prove that what the person believed was true. Ends up disproving it, actually. But it does prove that when the person believes things to be true, even when they're not, they become enacted in the body. I'll say it again. What the placebo effect proves is that when the person believes things to be true, they become enacted in the body even when they are wrong. This is all the more powerful a finding. Think about this. Even when the believer is completely wrong, it still comes true simply because they believe it. Is there any evidence stronger than that? That the mind can control the body even when there isn't an actual injury? Or even when they should be getting better or they should be healing? All of these things fit with mind-body theory, and the placebo effect is the greatest example we have of this. So if we're going to use science and logic to understand what is happening to us, we cannot throw out data. And yet, when we dismiss the placebo effect, when we dismiss mind-body experience, we are being asked to throw out data from nearly every study in the history of mankind. I don't understand how people can claim that they're being scientists when they're throwing out data from every study that has ever been. We're also being asked to throw away data that fits with all of our own experiences every day. We all have mind-body experiences every day, whether it's crying, blushing, blood flow changes, oxygen level changes, heart racing faster when you get mad or when you are activated in some way, the whole fight or flight fear response. We all have it every day. Meanwhile, just moving your arms is a mind-body experience. We're being asked to throw out all of this information. We're being asked to throw away data that makes sense actually from every angle. And we're being asked to throw it away in favor of theories that fall apart like a house of cards when we really look at them. Here's my next question. Why is this happening? As we've discussed before, it's happening because I've discussed this in one or two of my videos. If you haven't watched my whole catalog of videos, you might not know this, so I'm going to say it again. It's happening because we have what is essentially an international delusion. It was begun mostly by René Descartes' dualism in the 1700s. I won't take you on a history lesson if you don't want to, but if you're interested, I have lots to say about it. And this spread like a conspiracy theory, even though it made no actual sense. It did not fit with any of the wisdom and knowledge of millennia, all because it appealed to something some people would have wanted to believe. Here is why. They wanted to believe that we have nothing to do, like we ourselves have nothing to do with our bodies and what happens to them. They didn't want any responsibility in it. And just because of that, that's something that split the idea between mind and body for some people. Many other people didn't believe it. But essentially what dualism was a grand disavowal of responsibility for ourselves. We decided to detach from our body and what it was expressing so that we didn't have to take responsibility for it. But guess what? We always end up with the bill because we live in the body. So I don't know for sure, but I'm guessing that René Descartes was a serious piece of work. Just because he had to be so defensive to have created this theory, this philosophy. The other reason that this is happening now is that delusion has been not only completely legitimized, it's actually the dominant view now. And so not only legitimized, but even worse, it's the dominant view. That leaves everyone ripe for falling into the trap of thinking the mind and body are separate, which they are not. We have every reason to believe this from every angle. The thing that happened with this setup is this is now the defense of choice for self-aware, insightful people. Because the other defenses with people like that have been largely stripped away. But this one's lying in wait. It's lying out there for everyone's use, and all of society, always, is walking around validating it right and left in nearly, I would say, probably a third of all sentences that they say, given the number of physical complaints and the experience people have physically and what they're talking about. We're constantly reinforcing this delusion. So what can we do with this information now that we're thinking about the placebo effect? We can use the information of the placebo effect to its logical end. And that's exactly what we need to do as scientists and people who are thinking logically. As with any of my theories, I get there by asking the question and then finding out where does it take me. So here's what I'm going to tell you about what I found about the placebo effect, and you guys can tell me if this makes sense to you. I'm happy to have a debate about it. I love debating, actually, especially when it's about this stuff, and I can help people see it the way that would actually help them. Here's what I came to. First of all, the placebo effect is known to be completely real. And if that's true, it means we should not be having any arguments about whether the mind can control the body. That should be dismissed as a complete absurdity. We have proof that the mind controls the body absent of real truth or anything actually going on just outside of belief. In nearly every study we've ever seen, the placebo effect should end this debate. Somehow, the other side is getting away with murder on this. They're just dismissing the placebo effect as some kind of novelty act, and as a result, they're getting away with an absurd argument. Secondly, if the placebo effect is true, what it means is what we believe becomes activated, even if what we're thinking isn't true. So this means that what happens in the body isn't necessarily based on a reality of the body. It's more based on what we are believing to be true. This is proof of mind-body theory right there. Just the fact that the placebo exists and behaves the way it does. Here's the other thing. Bodily experience is also very real. So the fact that the placebo effect exists And the body expressed these things confirms all the more what we already knew, that when the mind controls the body, the physiology follows suit in actuality. It is actually happening in the body. We see it with the placebo effect all the time. And this brings me to, thirdly, that we can also put aside the silly argument that mind-body ideology is suggesting things are happening in your head. No, they are happening from your head. We know. We have all the measures that we need scientifically. You can watch a PET scan, or you can take an MRI. You can see that things are truly physically there. But the thing is, the placebo effect is showing us that these things aren't happening in your head. They are starting from your head most of the time, in a mind-body sort of way, and they're leading to actual effects in the body. The placebo effect operating the way it does is proof that nothing's in your head. So with respect to the 3 columns, the existence of the placebo effect, and actually it's being at the forefront of scientific study, even though it's being treated as a sideshow, it's in every study for a reason. The existence of the placebo effect shows how each column works. So let's review some facts before I show you how each column applies. The placebo effect shows that the mind believes it, so the body makes it so. We already have the science to show how this can happen with peptides. If you hadn't seen it before, I did have a video on what's happening in the physiology of the mind-body experience, something called peptides, where the brain can send a message to every cell and control it in any physical way it wants to. We have the documentation of cultures around the world that have believed this for millennia, that developed separately from each other, so they didn't even influence each other. The fact that they happened independently is all the more of a strong argument. We have a theory that does not have to dismiss facts or scientific studies. And when I say a theory, I'm talking about mind-body theory. And we have the most basic human experience that happens in scientific studies, the placebo effect. That's what I'm trying to highlight here. The placebo effect is such an important part of science, and it is not being discussed correctly in terms of what it actually means. Here's what it means in terms of the columns. In the emotions column, emotions can cause symptoms because how we are feeling, or how we're thinking about our feelings, changes our belief systems instantly. And this is why moment-to-moment thinking is so important. We feel things, we change who we are in that moment, and our bodies follow suit. Essentially, if you're in a different emotional state, you're in a different physiology, and the placebo effect is direct proof that that would be true. In the doubt column, we find that the placebo effect is especially supportive of my column system and the mind-body ideology, because the doubt column basically is the placebo effect. What it is saying by definition is that if we have faulty beliefs, they become realities if we believe it strongly enough. Confusion, unanswered questions, lack of certainty about the truth, or fear. All of these things and the strength of those faulty beliefs is enough to make acute pain chronic, or to make triggers powerful enough to set off a cascade of physical events, or to make us fear and doubt our own competence and sense of safety. Just the belief. And should we really be surprised by this? No. The placebo effect is telling us that that will happen all the time. And with power, with the power column, our belief about ourselves and whether we are good, strong, safe, valid, and more becomes a reality too. Whatever we believe about ourselves is going to become real because the placebo effect shows us that's how the mind and the body work. Who we are when we are doing something becomes a physiological reality. The good news about all of this with the placebo effect is you are not doomed to your past because you are who you are. That's how people talk about it. I am whom I am, I can't change. That's actually not true. The placebo effect shows that if you can change what you believe about who you are, you will change. So it's your belief system about yourself that you feel you can't change. But if you do change it, everything can change. Let me say that one more time. If your beliefs don't change, nothing does. But if your beliefs about you change, everything can change. And I'm living proof of that. I have changed my beliefs about me. That's the power column. And that's the thing that has really set me free. And that is why I know that each and every one of you can get better from chronic pain and suffering, because we all have the chance to change our moment-to-moment thinking, to change who we are, and that changes everything. it changes our thinking, it changes our physiology, and we know it to be true because the placebo effect shows it every day, all the time. If you haven't already, click subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, hit like if you like what you're hearing, and put your comments below, and I'll get back to you personally.